Hello, everyone. If there's anyone even there, this might have worked out better if I actually shared this with a few people, but well, hello, hello, Shadow. Hello, Nathan. Hello, Distintius. Hello, Party Commissar. How are you? Hold on. Did this actually go from change picture? Should have. Oh yeah, it did. It did. Okay. I'm having a slight delay here. uh, just this is just to test a few things out and see if everything works. I didn't really. I mean, I've had a few ideas for what to do here, but it's been well, it's been one hell of a week. Hello. Okay, so I can see everything's moving correctly. Everything should be good. Yes, planning ahead is a trap. It's been never plan ahead, it never works out. I'm sorry if the eyes go a bit weird. That's the only thing I haven't been able to figure out. When I look slightly to the side, they deform. But oh, the wiggle dance. I can wiggle. I can wiggle now. That's as much as I can do. Okay. Yes. This is the wiggle that will be known in cultural movements and studied for centuries in academia. Maybe on version 2 of the model I'll add even more wiggle, and it'll do a full 360. I mean, they usually wiggled after the rebellion happened. Okay, everything works. Okay, so what can I do with this? Well, I mean, I know what I can do with this. The streaming software the streaming software gave me a 20-minute panic before this because, well, I had to switch things out and remake things because it didn't want to connect to the proper stream key. So it's been a rush these last few minutes. Anyway, what can I do? If I can do anything, I can probably start talking about some things. I've had notes prepared for a while. If anyone has any questions about videos or anything, feel free to ask. Yes, notes. I've had notes on, well, video ideas and lecture ideas and other things. I was considering that's the Victoria Free review. That's I do have a plan to cover that history as I go on after Mohawk and everything, because that's when I'll probably change up how I do things a little, because this has been a model of the series I've been working on for the last 6 years on how to do stuff. now, thankfully, it's going to, well, history is going to change a bit, and other things are going to start happening that should allow me a bit more freedom to produce outside of the contours of the series. Although it's been fun trying to bend to that, even though it's taken the amount of time I'd originally wanted for the series to happen. Like I was, if it weren't for events and life and things, I should have been in Mohawk 3 years ago, but things happen and things don't work out. But they do. It's looking. I mean, it's looking better. This has been a very productive year, but well, results varied. I do plan on covering the history of the entire Habsburg monarchy. Well, at least from probably not the entire history of the Habsburg monarchy, at least from Frederick III. You're welcome. It's also been a unique experience because I've had to basically combine a lot of national histories, and even then, those are just the translated ones, which is, of course, a bit of a problem because I get a lot more of my own Croatian national history than I do the Czech or Hungarian, which has surprisingly caused more problems with the Czech history than it has with the Hungarian one, because I've had so little information on what goes on in Bohemia, but then it usually devolves into family squabbles and rivalries between noble houses and the cities. It's all very almost what we will regard as local history rather than grand national history, because Bohemia is so secure within its own borders in a way. So its history is not that external as other as the other two. But it's been fun. It's been quite a journey. Uh, it, One thing I am looking forward to is finally maybe finishing actually playing through Kingdom Come Deliverance, and maybe doing that at some point, but probably that's going to be on another channel. Because I haven't played through that game, because I play through a bit of it and then I lose, something happens, and then I start sword fighting and then I completely forget about sword fighting. Well, probably a few years ago. Oh God, 7 years ago, the best in the world. But it's been 7 years since then. Time flies. uh, uh, okay. Yes, yes. It's Kingdom Come is a very interesting and detailed game series. It's just it's sort of, as I was saying, I start playing it, then I stop playing it, then I forget how to sword fight, and then it all goes downhill from there. It's something you really have to play in a full go if you can. Well, at least I have to. I've been having fun with Crusader Kings more. Well, Crusader Kings 3 now. Yes, yes. Time has been. It's been a weird year because I've had less time for things overall, but I've also done more things because I've just had to do more things the past year. So it's so that's why you got that spate of short videos in the spring, and then I had to devote myself to writing out the current series fully, which is being worked on. I've just had to pause because well, things happened, and well, again, life happens, and you can't plan these things. Even though, as much as I always try to end the series before Christmas, and it never works out. It always goes into the new year. Either I get sick or something else happens and delays happen, and then Christmas happens, and I don't have time just to steamroll and finish it. And sometimes the whole steamroll pace of it stops, and you just wind up. Well, it takes time to get back into the swing of it. It's also I don't like audio recording for some reason. No matter how much I do it, it's always an intimidating part of it. I do plan on doing those sorts of things once I become eligible for them. It's just like YouTube membership. Once I become eligible, Patreon probably is going to be in sync with that because it needs some setting up on my part for administration and taxes and so on. So it's probably going to be done in one big go. So those things are in my head. It's just a matter of getting there. uh, One idea I did have for this is that we could go and take a look at some old maps if the site is still on, if I can find it, because there are some interesting things I wanted to look at, or that we can look at. I just need to set it up, and that's going to be set up on another screen before we transition to it. Early for the next one. uh, Yeah, old maps are great. There's a there's a site that I think used to be called Mapire, but it's called Arcanum Maps or something now. That that has the 19th century survey maps of things. Yes, the thing that gets me is how small everything is, how not widespread, how open everything tends to be in around places, like how concentrated the cities were, and before the urban and suburban sprawl sets in, and then you start to realize how small things are. Hello, Justin. Thank you. I will try. It's been a passion, and after 6 years, I don't think I'm giving up on this. uh, See now if we get this to work without. Nope. Right. Probably window capture might be a better idea. Yes, 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 yes. Put me above it. This is a site I used for a it. Hold on, I have a Steam thing in the way of my display. Oh, I am considering it right now. I want to get to the end of the current series and to Mohawk, and then I have a video idea for the Free Royal Cities that I want to do. Basically, a summary history of the Free Royal Cities through the Middle Ages until, well, until now, and then we'll go through, well, until not until now, until Mohawk, and then we'll see what we have after that, because it's the field opens up a lot more on what I can and will do. Because we also have the, when we come to Mohawk, we also get the end of the medieval period, and you can start doing these big sweeping analyses that I sort of wanted to do, but I didn't have the background to do quite yet. And as I'm making the series, everything's the arguments and the essentials form in my head, and how what I want to do, what I want to say, and how it should be said. Oops. Okay, okay. The noble houses are one of the topics I can get in. I will probably get into at some point, because they become incredibly essential in the next in the next 100 years after Mohawk, because from the defense of Seagate to the magnate conspiracy in the 17th century, and then the entire cultural impact into the 19th century that the Shubich and Frankopan houses has, is incredibly important. I've covered a bit of their history through the regular videos, but not them fully. Like, they are in the background, they exist. And you have them when they are important, such as the Anjou succession, which is a in which the Shubich play a great big important role by inviting the Anjous, even inviting the Anjous over in the first place, along with a few other Hungarian noblemen. So yes, that is on the cards. Okay, let's take a look at a what happens if I shrink this. Better question, because I would still like to see chat and still like to see like to see what happened. Yes. Okay, this should, as long as I don't move anything, it should be fine. So let's transition to some old maps. These are old military survey maps, and they are incredibly accurate for maps, because what you can do here is you can put the overlay of the real world on it. You can turn on the real world overlay, and you can I mean, a lot of people like I'm intrigued that a lot of people use my videos to go to sleep, which is, I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But let's go and let's take a look at, this is the 1860s map survey. It might not be in your experience, but I am not honestly too familiar with the specifics of it, but you do get an intermixing of military culture along the entire border and military frontier, even in those very early days of the military frontier, when it's, well, the proto-military frontier, during Sigismund and Matthias, where you get stories of various commanders. Yes, that is a very accurate. It's military survey maps, but you get a lot of. As I was saying, sorry, I got distracted, but you get a lot of intermixing of military technique along, even in the proto-military frontier during Sigismund and Matthias, when people are just learning how to fight against the Ottomans, where they are also picking up not just the arriving military tradition from Italy and Germany. I think the Italian tradition may be more prominent in the mid. It could be more prominent, is what I mean, because that is where most of the conflicts are ongoing, and you don't really get German troops arriving here until the 1510s, late 1510s, when well, you get them sometimes before, because Archduke Ferdinand does, well, the Archduke Maximilian does send them down from time to time, but you're more likely to get the Italian military tradition, because that is also what the Hunyadis were educated in, and that is what is the predominant, because of the whole even before the Italian wars and things, that is where they could train. That is where a lot of knowledge and expertise came from. So but then you have the influx of, from German mercenaries to German military troops to even Spanish troops that arrive along with later Habsburg rule to man the border fortresses. Like, it is the the wealth of the Habsburg Empire, of the global Habsburg Empire, is what starts to establish the military frontier. It is probably understated sometimes. Like, sometimes we expect that this is just what financed the military frontier, but it is the wider global Habsburg Empire that also plays a big part in this. Anyway, as I was saying, we can go down all the way. Like, these are very detailed military survey maps, and you can see, go down to like the Zagreb, still when it was just the main two towns and the main streets, just incredibly tiny versus the urban sprawl that it is now. I did not. I'll have to. I'll have to. I am considering. There's a lot of things that I need that has been recommended to listen to, so I will check that out. I haven't played. I've played Europa Universalis 5. My computer. It's sort of odd. I don't know if my computer's too slow, or if that is the pace of the game that it is, or if I'm just playing a too small of a country uh, when I started playing, but it has an odd pace, because the time seems to be progressing slowly. Meanwhile, research and everything is progressing at the usual game pace, I would say. It, it, it's it's a very interesting game that has a big simulation behind it, based on population, that I'm intrigued into learning, and it's a bit too early for me to render judgment on the game on the Europa Universalis 5 as a whole, because I just haven't played it that much at all. I need to try playing the bigger countries rather than just trying to do something as small ones to try and learn the basic mechanics of it, because I've been playing small countries for the sake of learning the small scale economy and then applying it to the bigger countries later. But it has an odd pacing. But I'll probably will check out that podcast if it talked about Matthias, because I think I don't I've not I mean I've read a lot about Matthias, and it is a very interesting period from what ifs to I mean that sort of stands to reason with Milan being what it is in the period. But Matthias is this from what ifs to not just what ifs, but to whatever to what he did, because there is from the economy that he built to the military that he builds, and everything that just gets almost completely deleted the moment he dies. Well, not the moment he dies, but within a few years of after his death, it is gone. The entire system that he built is gone. And there's debate in how much that system of Matthias's was even sustainable and what his aims for that system were. As I mean, I end the series on the various possibilities that he could have what some consider could have happened if he hadn't died, but he dies. And so I am interested on hearing the more German Habsburg take on Matthias, because it does seem to have been a somewhat of a rivalry between Frederick III and Matthias, even though they are in this very odd relationships of adoptive father and son. And then you have the entire contradiction of Frederick III being the arch sleepyhead of Europe, who is said to not have done much, and yet he builds the entire Habsburg Empire. He builds the foundation of the entire Habsburg Empire from himself onward. Where's Vienna? I've started talking about Frederick, so we're going to Vienna. Hello! Well, thank you! Thank you. I try. I try, God knows I try. I mean, you all know I try. You wouldn't be fans if you didn't. But this is. I mean, I started talking about Frederick III, so I went just to the map of Vienna, and this is from the 18. This is either 1840s or 18. Oh, this is a wider survey. This is before the fortification walls of Vienna get torn down, and you have the entire ring built around here, which is, I think they get torn down 1850s, 1860s, and the entire Ringstrasse gets built around the Hofburg here, and where all the important buildings are built and everything. And then you just have Dunburn here, which is then still on the outskirts of the city. Like, this is still a country estate. There's no city here. Which just, like, the scale of... Can I get the overlay here? Thank you. Like, look at the Vienna city sprawl here. This is it, well, contemporary, probably not today, whenever the satellite flew of it. And this was it in the 1860s. And we sort of still talk about all of these cities as if their populations have not increased tremendously in over any amount of time. It's sort of, I mean, we're aware of those sorts of things, but it's speaks on some economic and social scale about what's going on in them. Like if we've seen Vienna, we can go to Budapest. I think if I go, I think I found the Danube. Yeah, here we go, Budapest. Before a lot of building work is done there. But it's still Buda and Pest, it's not Budapest. And we can again, the city sprawl overlay goes up to here and all around. And before it's almost just concentrated to this. It's quite it's sort of astounding what happens to the cities in the 18th 19th centuries, well, in the 19th century, and then the 20th. Like the city sprawl just increases and we become far more urbanized than we ever thought. And I don't think it's one thing to keep aware, because we've had this happen in the Matthias Corvinus series, and we have it happen in the later periods where we do have urban areas and cities, but they are not concentrated. They are not as big, they are not concentrated, they are not as powerful as in Western Europe, where they become these economic engines, while here they are there's still concentrations of wealth and population, but they are a lot more isolated and a lot more prone to manipulation by the other estates and threats and everything. It actually becomes a big feature later. Just we're gonna get into that in the upcoming series, because we're getting into the 1520s and the enormous crisis that engulfs everything. So, like, this is the smallness of Croatia's capital, Zagreb, in the 1860s, and here it is in the suburban urban sprawl. These days, it's we sort of talk about all of it. When we talk about all of these cities, it's easy to forget that this happens to them in the 19th and 20th centuries. One of my professors had a very interesting way of depicting the difference between, yeah, yeah, they're like villages, almost like very small towns or villages. One of my professors has a very interesting way of depicting this on his very first lecture. I mean, I'll draw it for you. Bu- 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 the difference between East and West, and he does it already in the early medieval period. It was a lecture on the beginning of the Middle Ages with the Carolingian Empire and to where it sprawls. Well, where it sprawls to and how it does and goes. But he had a very memorable depiction of it. So I'm just gonna turn us to that window. And that I think I'm gonna need to change the window display. Uh, um, no, 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 don't move me. This guy. Might have to switch the display on this, not. Oh, the problems of streaming. We're gonna. Didn't know I probably want the window to do the capturing here. Display is more for things that I can't do. Where is it? I'm sorry about the hold up. It's just I'm also learning streaming. Hello, Corvinus M. I wonder who that's supposed to be named after. uh let's see if this will depict. Let's. Oh, I'm behind the screen now. I'm back. uh, honestly, no, I don't. Okay. I don't think this is showing it right, but might be. Gonna check my stream screens. It might just not be showing, but my professor used to do. One of my professors depicted the Carolingian Empire something like this. He started off with, "This is Francia." Hold on. Nope, that didn't work. Huh. Okay, I'm gonna switch out the program for another thing because that didn't work. Okay, let's try. Let's try desperate measures. Okay. Uh, not it. Or maybe if I do this. Ah, this might work. It doesn't appear to. Uh, uh, Jan de Bravius. There's a lot of Jans, so let's look it up. Oh, the Bishop of Olmutz. Oh, I doubt it was an like usually we're held to Brodarich's account as the sole eyewitness account, so I assume that's secondary source because I yeah I'll thank you for that. I'll look into it because that's gonna be interesting. That could be very useful. Well, that could be quite useful. Oh, finally it works. Okay, this should work. So, because so far I've read Brodaric because that is the sole eyewitness account that I think we know of, and at some point in my studies I also read one of the Ottoman chroniclers that wrote about it about 50 years later, also very much secondary account. And I mean, it was a work paper thing that I wrote in the differences between the two accounts at some point. It's sort of it's I think the Ottoman depiction is very interesting of 50 years later because it describes just suddenly we're attacked. Suddenly the Ottomans are attacked by this huge horde of Hungarian horsemen, which we know wasn't the case. But it's sort of always the practice that the enemy is always bigger than you. No matter what you're writing about, the enemy is always bigger than you. Because if you win, you beat someone bigger than you. If you lose, well, the enemy was bigger than you, so what could you do exactly? So whenever people are writing, the enemy will always be bigger. It always makes you look better. Almost always. I'm not gonna say always. I shouldn't say always because there's gonna be exceptions. But how did my oops. Back? Nope. Wrong window. Oh, still wrong window. Yeah. So my professor used to depict the whole thing somewhat like uh a I mean the consensus on Mohawk is usually a catastrophic defeat that could have been avoided if people had just waited, if the king had just waited for either Zapolya or Frankopan. If you're the Croatian account will consensus will always be if only he had waited for Frankopan, things would have been different. But it's sort of the big problem is that they are fully aware in that moment that they're the king and a lot of the council is fully aware in that moment that they shouldn't give battle. But what exactly is the alternative at that moment? Because any alternative, stopping, waiting, going somewhere else, opens the road to Buddha. And if the Ottomans get to Buddha, they have destroyed the economic base of the kingdom. At that point, they have destroyed the royal economic base. It's sort of what exactly can you do but give battle? And the longer it's delayed, the less option the king has to retreat. So it's sort of a tragedy in the making. And yeah, there are accounts where both Zapolya and Frankopan are sending letters to the king saying, "Don't give battle, don't give battle." I think I think it was, and it's almost a Greek tragedy. I think. I mean, you'll see it in the series, but it is this build-up of everything from. It is this build-up of passion and of, well, of just people having had enough of the status quo and of the current way of doing things. Because because you need to give battle. That is the only. It becomes the trade-off of you can either retreat and continue as you have been for the past 30 years, or you can give battle and maybe change something. It is that sort of tragedy of the situation that that sort of starts happening. Because it is this, like, I'm doing the whole long thing because the European situation plays up into Mohawk a lot. Like it is one of the reasons why the campaign even happens. So we are covering. Yes, Broderick mentions that Tamori threatens to turn against the king if the king decides to retreat. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to. Probably going to be ending the stream soon because this has worked out. I'll just share this one story of what. Share this one story as to close it out, but yeah, but yes, there is a depiction of. Broderick does talk about Tamori threatening to attack. Uh, it's it could be one or the other, but there is this implicit threat that if the king doesn't give battle, it will be civil war. But that is also that's also been the common threat of the last of for quite some time at that point. Because you not only have the threat of civil war, you have the threat of secession from Croatia, you have the threat of secession into the union from Croatia. You have constant threats to the King's Council about what's going to constant threats to the King's Council about that something might happen. I think it's an inescapable situation because you're put into. And I think it is psychological a lot because you can either continue to suffer as you have been for the past 30 years, as I've said, or you can maybe change something. And it's sort of, it's either you do something and you go out in a blaze of glory, or you don't do anything and you suffer the same defeat without the blaze of glory. And if you win, even better. The period of the union in Croatia is viewed. Well, the period of union with Hungary is viewed. It's still that very much 19th century heritage of not liking it. It is. There was suggestions of secession and enter the union in the 1520s. It's floated in the 1510s for the first time, right around the time of the War of the League of Cambrai. The Venetian ambassador, I think, reports on notions from the Croatian nobility of wanting to end the union with Hungary and come under Venice. Some of them make that suggestion. How much that is real or not, and Venetians are just hoping for something to happen there, I'm not sure. But in 1526, 1526 starts with the Croatian Diet debating an end to the union and either coming under Ferdinand, Archduke Ferdinand, or Venice, or even some suggest making a deal with the Sultan. I don't know if it's some suggesting that some suggested that, or some historians are suggesting that. Uh, Croatia was uh, it's it's sort of like a lot of historians will put, especially a lot of current period historians will put a lot of, oh, why didn't Frankopan take the mantle of the Croatian king after Mohac, or why didn't they do this, why didn't they do that, why didn't they make a deal with the Ottomans like Dubrovnik Ragusa had, why this, why that, in order to preserve the independence of, in order to make an independent Croatia, because that is the modern idea of the supreme Croatian virtue, the Croatian historical goal, so to say. But I'm not sure anyone ever seriously considered that. Uh, yes, Croatia is treated as its own kingdom, but 19th century historians and 19th century historical tradition is very much split between, it's very much split between historians that need to depict Croatia as this independent entity from Hungary that persisted throughout the centuries, but also it needs to be depicted as this poor but it also needs to be depicted as this poor kingdom that's been trodden on. It's it's this dual nature of nationalism and nationalist national needs of propagating an idea that sort of has this almost schizophrenic view of things, because historically Croatia is largely left to do as it wishes throughout the period of union with Hungary, with the exception of the appearance of the quote-unquote strong kings like Louis and Sigismund. Sigismund, where they do assert their authority over Croatia and Hungary as a whole, and they even, but even during those periods, even during Louis and Sigismund and Matthias, Croatia does maintain this degree of autonomy that can't be denied, and the Croatian nobility are largely left to their own devices as a separate kingdom under the crown. And even there's discussions at the end of Matthias's rule where he's searching for some solution to his succession to sort of uh, Croatia is treated as a separate entity from Hungary when talking about that. It's it's very, it's the problem. Yeah, we're getting to the next capture of Yaitse again, probably next next series. Uh, it's it's a very yes, the eggs were captured. Well, one egg. I think Yaitse falls. I think even later than that. I might be confusing it with another fortress. Uh, I could be confusing Klis and Yaitse right now about when they fell to the Ottomans. Yeah, yeah, it does fall in 1520, around 1527, 1528. Well, during all that chaos, but it is, and it is very interesting. Now, as I was, Bliss fell quite a bit later because of the successful defense, because Captain Krujic defends it in very much isolation from the Ottomans for a long while. It starts. It starts even during the. It starts very much because of the Ottoman. It starts a bit before. I mean, it's assumed to have started a bit before during the Ottoman raids into the area where just refugees. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's assumed to have happened during the. Yeah, it happens very much during the period of the military frontier because both sides are sort of playing off the migrating Serbs and giving them better deals as to who will serve in the serve on the frontier here for less, well, more or less money at what time, and some people, and for what rights and settling and pasture rights and so on. And it's this entire bargaining between the Habsburgs and the Ottomans for a long time. But that is the it even starts during the Corvinus's period, where rights are given to people, to refugees that are coming in to man the border, man the fortresses. It starts slowly during then, even, except nobody really cares about the national identity of people until the 19th century. Anyway, as I was saying, this is how one of my professors depicted. This is how one of my professors depicted the differences. Yes, the drawing. This is what one of my professors depicted the the differences between, sort of the differences in development between East and West, and even in the early Middle Ages, and how it goes on from there. So he draws this and says this, and he draws that, and he says this is Francia, and then he goes, this is Francia under Charlemagne, to where it expanded to. This is Byzantium, and he sort of, and I think there's an implication that this is supposed to be the wider Francian Empire, the wider Francian vassals that Charlemagne picks up in current day Eastern Europe, and how the border between Francia proper and those expanded vassals almost mimics the border that goes down between East and West in the 20th century. It's like the final extent of the Francian Empire is the western border of the Cold War. And the difference between development, and then the professor goes, this is the number of towns that were built in the 11th century in Western Europe, in France. And he just starts dotting the I mean, he's doing this with a chalk, on a chalkboard, not here, but he just starts dotting a lot of dots here. And then he goes, this is the number of towns in Poland in the 11th century. And no, it's no, I've just he drew it with it's not a necessary part of it. I just used the wrong tool for it. I just drew the thing with the block tool instead of doing it appropriately. But it was two big rectangles and one big triangle to depict Byzantium here, and that's Byzantium. And then he goes, this is the number of cathedrals in France, and he goes, and he did more dots, and then he continues putting at what, just clicking at one spot. And he says, now we all go out for a coffee. And he continues dotting it. It is sort of the most eastern edge of it is debatable of, it is, so it's not supposed to be that well defined. it's not that well developed. It's more of a rule of thumb that he's doing than the. But he's depicting how many towns, how many church, how many cathedral towns popped up in France, Western France, yeah, and then the Eastern Francia and the Eastern Francian vassals and everyone, and how that marks a very much difference in development. And if you start looking at the population numbers, it becomes even more interesting because France has one of the biggest European populations for the longest time. Like France and Germany have extremely large population numbers compared to other places in Europe. France especially because Germany as we know is split between many parts and many nations. Because between many German states and it's not consolidated. But so France has the biggest European population for a long while and into the 19th century. Like there's a tendency to also think that Britain also has a very much lower population than France, and including Spain too. So if I go at the population numbers, like I think when France is sporting like several tens of million like one of my outlines is for uh oops I'm having some lag here. It's it's sort of as you go no, that's not good. What is the, let's see, French population? Let's take 1700. And let's see, just Spain. Yeah, Spain is by several factors lower than France. Like Spain and Portugal combined are twice have half the population of France. England has, well, Britain has a third of that population. Almost, it's like the amount of people France has, and this sort of enters into the Napoleonic Wars. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of until you get to. I mean, that applies only to Europe because, but it's interesting because this population is sort of persists through the Middle Ages into the 19th century, and then just the population boom in the 19th century happens that changes all that, and now we have a sort of weird European equilibrium almost where these differences are not that stark. But you can just imagine what this means when we get to the French Revolution and especially the Napoleonic Wars, and you get to the levée en masse system, conscription, what it means to suddenly have, for France to have one of the biggest populations in Europe. It's almost terrifying. But it's Hungary and Croatia, in terms of population and development, sort of do match the European movements. Yes, that's around it. And that increase in population the population also increases earlier than in other European countries because of very early adoptions of inoculation and vaccination in the 18th century. So it's I or no, that's the opposite. I think no, that's for England. England's the one that adopts inoculation earlier. I think. I think I switched out England and France, so don't listen to me on that one. I think Voltaire writes in his letters in the 1720s how England is much better than France because it practices inoculation, but that might have changed a bit. Yes, Croatia and Hungary sort of track European developments until the late 15th and early 16th century, when everything has to suddenly turn to the Ottoman border. And even after that, the 17th, 18th, 19th century, where 17th, 18th century, where everything is meant to be reared towards the military and defense of the border. Like the entire focus of the population and the economy is that, and there is no room for earlier Renaissance medieval developments that had happened before. You get the same thing with the coastal cities that suddenly have to stop their development because they also have to refocus to defense against the Ottomans, and Venice also changes its entire economic model to further turn Dalmatia into a resource gathering operation rather than trade nodes. It's a very interesting combination of factors that hit around the same time, because at the same time you also get the development of the Atlantic trade and everything that also has knock-on effects on everything else, as we've depicted. I'll just something. Ah, that. Okay. Yes, that is actually the interesting result of the movements of the Croatian nobility, who the Croatian magnates that are searching for safe land, that then get it through royal grants or marriages or things, and they also need estates closer to Vienna in order to constantly be able to travel to meet with the monarch. So that is one of the reasons why they move them to that section of the Hungarian-Austrian border. And when it all becomes this one part of the same union, it also becomes easier to get those estates consolidated. Because you also want safe estates away from the Ottomans that can't get raided. That is also another reason why they get those estates. But they get them in that stretch between Hungary and Austria, because they also need estates close to Vienna in order to be able to attend the emperor. Even though everyone gets like the Hungarian Croatian magnates are very big on defying the king and emperor and standing on the rights of 1222 and everything. Yeah, Burgenland Croats are still a thing. It's I think like there's even the suggestion that one of the Burgenland Croat songs inspires Haydn for the first few notes of God Protect the Emperor, that then becomes the German anthem. But it's sort of tenuous. uh, yeah, I think by the end of by the end of the 1700s, you have to account for the fact that Hungary suddenly gets all of Hungary back in 1699. So it gives it a much bigger population base that's already sort of also been protected by being on not exactly on the border, but you have the same population that's just grown inside the Ottoman Empire. and then the sweep comes in 1783, 1699, the 1699 war that just, well, almost all of Hungary is, I think all of Hungary is all of medieval Hungary is all recaptured in 1699, and a few campaigns later, and you get Hungary suddenly has a much bigger population and a lot more territory to deal with. And like the kingdom is sort of restored at that point, which isn't the same for which can't be said the same thing for. Oh, okay, yeah, almost all of it. Then I'll say always better to say almost. It covers you. It covers you. it covers you from a lot of ways. uh, well, it's been. They speak Chikavi, and I now that's something I didn't. I know they spoke Croatian. So I think it's been a nice hour chatting with you all. So I'm glad everything works. I'll probably have something far more structured to do in the future. Oh, I mean, Jelacic is. I need to read more about Jelacic to. Oh no, you didn't tire me out. I'm actually enjoying it. I haven't read enough about Jelacic to form a concrete opinion on it, but I generally it's a good view of it. It's a positive view as opposed to the Hungarian view. Like it's culturally ingrained to be so, and I think. And you know, I mean, it's sort of like the Battle of Pakos was a draw, and he retreated in good order because he meant to retreat. Oh, you don't. It's sort of interesting. What is he just regarded like? Oh, yeah, as a true Austrian, quote unquote, loyal to the dynasty, it would be. But yeah, I mean, he's depicted very positively in Croatia as a Croatian. I mean, he's even depicted from the side of Austria, from the side of the Austrians as positive. I mean, if you, along with the Radetzky March, that is composed in 1848, Strauss composes the Jelacic March, and in the middle of it there is the Croatian there is the melody from the Croatian national song, from the Croatian, well, national awakening song, uh how to translate it. Croatian still hasn't fallen. So Strauss does also, along with Radetzky, also have the Jelacic March. I don't know if he composes one for Winterschratz, though. Interesting. I mean, aside from it being, it's sort of, the Jelacic statue goes up sort of. It's said at the last moment because it goes up in 1867, and then the Croato-Hungarian Compromise is signed in 1868. So it comes up at the before before it can be before anybody stops it. And it's sort of at the moment where Jelacic's image is very much rehabilitated. Uh, in the 1860s, because you also have because Jelačić goes sort of goes through the hero of 1848, the national hero, the one who the Croatian people and parliament want to have in charge, and then the neo-absolutism comes in, which revokes all of the traditional rights and everything, that then also makes everyone angry at Vienna. And then you have the reassertion of constitutionality in 1860 that sends the empire. I honestly, it's people say crisis, but it's very much a reassessment of how to even rebuild the empire's constitution in the early 1860s, because and it could have gone. Some say it could have gone a lot of ways, but the Hungarian reaction is the big factor to it. The Hungarian and Bohemian reaction is the big factor to that is being considered in Vienna, because Bohemia is very much economically very strong, and Vienna can't afford to either lose it or piss it off too much. Yeah, he is regarded as a hero because he fought under the Croatian flag. He fought very much under the Croatian name. He was he presided over all of the national demands, and the national awakening was part of the national awakening circles even before that. But and sort of the neo-absolutism, he gets some of the blame for it here, but it's generally depicted as not his fault. And it's a lot of tensions of the 1830s and 1840s with Hungary are also released through him, because Budapest is not being nice towards Croatia in the 1830s, because there's this whole reassertion of the reassessment and reassertion of yes, neo-absolutism is the age of Minister Bach and so on. I said Vindish. Oh, sorry. Vindischgratz is the most hate. Vindischgratz is the least hate. I mean, Vindischgratz played a big role in Bohemia and not so much in Hungary, and big role in Bohemia and Vienna and not so much in Hungary. But it's said that in 1848, when the yes, he is seen. Yes, he is seen partially because he fought against Hungary, because then it's also at that point it's also due to these relationships between the kingdoms that are being reassessed, and the Hungarian-Croatian tensions are growing in the 1820s, 1830s, and it's sort of and people do want to take there is motivation to take the fight to them, especially when they rebel against the lawful rule and the lawful king and so on and so forth. And Vienna is seen, and for the 1840s, 1830s, 1840s, Vienna is seen as the ally. And it's these changing relationships throughout the 19th century that then also change the depiction of Jelačić. And then the reasons for that were it's largely due to it's not so much different development speeds, it's due to the beginnings of Hungarian assertions that it starts even in 1790, when Joseph's II's rule ends, and the Hungarians are having this triumphant diet of reasserting their old rights and everything. And it's the moment when the Hungarian language is being spoken at the joint diet instead of Latin. And the Croatian estates come there in almost a panic as to what the hell is happening, because suddenly they're all speaking Hungarian, they don't want to speak Latin, traditions are being broken, and demands are being met. And demands are being made for the Hungarian language to be inserted into Croatian education, into Croatian schools, and the government in Buda, the government in Buda, the Vice-Regal Council is demanding that laws now apply to that certain laws also start applying to Croatia, and so on and so forth. And then you have, and basically Croatian Diet takes a stand on, there are some compromises here being made, and they'll be criticized later on, but there are compromises in the 1790s that are made, but Croatia takes a stand on its old traditional municipal rights and the Latin language. Yes, it's sort of, the Hungarian national movement has a head start on the Croatian one, and sort of causes the Croatian one, especially after the end of Franciscan absolutism and the 1830s, where again you have this reassertion of parliamentarity and constitutionality that comes back, and again the joint diet is being summoned in Buda, and again the Hungarians are insisting that Hungarian be spoken as the official language, and that it be asserted into Croatia as the official or secondary language. And there's a scene in the Hungarian Diet where rules are passed for Hungarian to become the debating language. Well, the Croatian representative starts speaking in Latin, as is tradition, and one Hungarian representative pops up and says, no, because sorry, I'm gonna finish the story. And the Hungarian representative pops up and says, I don't understand Latin. And the presiding officer of the Diet says to the Croatian that you should learn Hungarian, that's the rules now. And he says to the Hungarian, I've heard you speak Latin. I've heard you speak Latin for the last 30 years. Don't pretend that you don't understand it. So it's trying to reach this compromise between the two arguments, but it is very much the language question is the predominant national question at that point. So it all starts from there, and it also draws on the assertions of Croatian separation from medieval times, and the entire basis of the union comes into question. And the Hungarians and Hungarian historians and politicians were very much high and mighty on asserting that Croatia was not an equal partner in the union, but was actually annexed. Thus, it doesn't deserve all of these rights that it has, and everything is based upon a fiction of the Pacta Conventa, which isn't even a real document, and despite the fact that it likely depicts what actually happened. It's very high national tensions that goes into 1848. That goes into 1848. Yes, it's nobility from the kingdom of it's rights given to the nobility of the kingdom of Slavonia, but because Croatia and Slavonia combined, they are sending representatives to there, and because the question of Slavonia is still not fully resolved, it also directly sends representatives to the Hungarian parliament, as the Slavonian counties send representatives to the Hungarian parliament because they're considered to be part of Hungary, while simultaneously being part of the Croatian Slavonian kingdom. Well, Dalmatian Croatian and Slavonian kingdom. So Slavonia is very much in a flux and getting a lot of rights from a lot of people before the question is resolved in 1868 with the Croatian-Hungarian Compromise, and then the Croatian-Hungarian Compromise and the relationship between Buda and Zagreb also doesn't help the depiction, doesn't help sentiments towards Hungarians, and revitalizes Jelacic's image in the latter half of the 19th century, which is when you start getting the famous song "Rise Up, Ban," to sort of ask for the resurrection of Jelacic to again show the Hungarians, well, again show the Hungarians who's boss here, well, who's boss in Croatia. But it is a very interesting relationship that that has its start in the, I mean, it has its start in the medieval times, and then through the 1500 and the 1600s, and then the 1700s. The 1700s, when you get the anti-Protestant laws passed in Hungary, passed in Croatia, like the Hungarian Protestants are barred from owning territory, owning property in Croatia, which is a lot of quite a bit of the Hungarian nobility at that point, and it's a sore point about until the 19th century that Croatia isn't allowing the Protestant Hungarian nobility to own anything in Croatia or give them those rights because of the laws passed at the beginning of the 17th century, and that's also a sore point that they want to resolve. Uh, down in Hungary. Yes, the language question and the language problem does lead to incredible stories from people at railway stations pretending not to know words just to make a point, and even though, and then people having to officially respond in one language but also finding ways around to just keep business flowing, because you can't work with the rigid rules that the language laws are prescribing sometimes, because you get, during the compromise period, you get the institutions that are tied under Buda are the post office and the railways, and there's an insistence on, like, the Croatians, like the Croatian historiography is no, because the April laws, or the April laws are sort of, I don't know when the dates, how the dates align right now, but they sort of come into the April laws are inserted for Hungary, and it's understood that Croatia had the right to its own set of laws, and like Croatia could refuse. It's sort of a unique position constitutionally where the quote unquote lesser partner in the union could reject a quote unquote lesser partner. Like, it's far more equal, almost equal partnership, but it is sort of even lesser partners. But Croatia asserts the right to, and it's sort of recognized by Hungary, that Croatia has the right to assert, especially with regards to the Protestant law, that Croatia has the right to reject laws that are passed in Buda. And I think that the April laws would fall under that, but I think at some point also the Croatian parliament in 1848 declares an end to the union, and thus it nullifies everything that's passed in Hungary in 1848. And that end to the union is asserted until the Croatian-Hungarian Compromise. Between 1848 and 1868, for those 20 years, the Croatian and Hungarian Union does not exist officially. And it's this period in the early 1860s, it's this period of even negotiation between Croatians and Hungarians, whether and on what basis to re-establish the union, and whether or not the union should be re-established, depending on whether or not these experiments that are happening in Vienna lead to some sort of federalized system or whatever happens. But like, people are plotting contingencies in the 1860s, and the union, and there is a large proportion of the Croatian electorate, which is a lot of the minor nobility, that favor that by 1865, like by 1865, the Croatian-Hungarian party wins the election, and the re-establishment of the union becomes almost certain. And they sort of win the election based on the failure of the Croatian National Party, the Croatian People's Party, to come to a new constitutional deal with Vienna or Hungary, when they've won the 1861 majority. It's really interesting. There were tensions between Hungary and Croatia. Like it's generally understood that. Oh yeah, see you later. Generally, it's understood that there was war in between Hungary and Croatia in 1848-49 because Jelačić invades with a Croatian army. Uh, how did one? I think one English historian, I can't remember the name right now, but he says 1848 1848 is the moment when the King of Croatia declared war on the King of Hungary while the Emperor of Austria stood on the sidelines, and they were all the same person. It's an interesting it's that sort of legalistic and entire mess that happens in 1848 that needs to be reassessed and well, not reassessed, but needs to be sort of depicted in a certain way, because there's a lot of complicated things here going on. There's a complicated things going on here, but we'll cross those bridges when we come to. Sorry, no pun intended there. We won't cross those bridges. Hopefully, never again. But we'll get to those things when we get to them. There'll be no crossing of bridges anymore. Anyway, thank you all for coming. I've really enjoyed this, and hopefully we can do this again sometimes. And I'm glad to see that the model and the streaming software is working, and yes, it all works. Thank you all. Now, where to end this?